Hello and welcome to Streetfighting Chess. I'm Andrew Burnett and this is part 2 of yesterday's Richardson Cup final game I played as black against Neil Farrell. I've just seen my last move here, bishop to e5, and we were looking at this move here, and then the knight has to come back here to strong point e5. And my opponent was very short of time here and he used up a fair portion of it before playing this move. Now obviously the queen would take because, apart from anything else, the pawn taking here loses to queen takes a6 check. So queen takes, and now my opponent thought he'd found a flaw in the position here. He played rook e2, it's defended by the knight here, attacking my queen. Now the queen doesn't have very many squares to go to here. But I've seen that if I come in here, I'm threatening this pawn with check against the king. And Neil played queen takes d6. He's attacking here, again with a check, threatened. When I play queen takes c4 check, we have to notice that there's the possibilities of a discovered attack against the queen. So for example, if the king came here, bishop f5 check, attacking the king. When he plays rook takes, then the queen's gone. Now the problem with Neil's solution, which was rook c2 blocking the check and attacking the queen, you see if the queen moves, say I grab the rook here, then he's probably got rook takes here, possibly queen takes, and I'm in serious trouble here. I'm probably just getting mated after something like this. It's not quite so clear. If I go here, it's definitely mate. And the king moves, and the queen here. Back in this position. It's not nice. Queen takes is a possibility as well. But unfortunately for Neil, this same discovered tactic on his queen works here. I can play queen takes rook check, as I did in the game. When the king takes, I actually played bishop f5 check here. My opponent was very short of time. I had plenty of time. I had about 25 minutes maybe here, and so I played this quite quickly. I got caught up in the excitement of the match and of my opponent's time trouble. After the game, my teammate Mark Orr, an international master from Ireland, said, well, surely bishop a4 check is a better way to do it. And it is. I hadn't really realised it going that way. I'd only really seen the bishop come in here, so there's no harm done. In this variation, however, which blocks the check, I take his queen, he takes the bishop, and now this pawn falls immediately. White's pawns here are completely disrupted, and it's an easy win. They exchange up and a pawn up. In the game, playing it this way is check. He has to take here. Now when I take the queen, this pawn's protected. But this should be clearly winning as well. I have to be careful of a few things. The knight came to here, and now if I just double up on this pawn, for example, white can play here. Knight c4 attacking the rook, and when the rook takes the pawn, rook takes rook, rook takes rook, there's a rather nasty knight fork here, which would just win for white. But that's the only problem in this position. I have to be careful that the knight can't come here and here with threats, or serious threats. So I played a good move here, knight e4. That reinforces this d6 square, making sure the pawn's not going to go very far. He tries to bring his other knight into the game. And what I really want to do here is get these rooks off. With the pair of rooks off, it would be much easier for me to win this. It's very simple, in fact. And now, because that knight's on f3, the rook can't really move. He could come here. Again, this isn't very threatening for me at all. I'll take the h-pawn. I now have a passed h-pawn. I still have a material advantage, and it's very doubtful if this pawn with the knight and rook will be able to cause me any real trouble. It might have been a better plan for white to play that. Instead, after rook f6, he played king d3. And now I simply protect a knight on this very good square. Now Neil's down to his last minute. Played rook takes rook, knight takes rook. and now he simply retreated the other knight here, looking to come into this square. But after rook e5, with a double attack on this here, knight c4, again with the same sort of problems. d5 isn't really hanging because of this check on b6. But the rook simply slides across to the h file. This pawn is doomed. Long term this will just win. And after knight d6 check, the king just comes up attacking it. The knight has no more checks. He's down to his last 10 seconds. The square's covered, and the h pawn is going to fall next move, and the d pawn, and or the d pawn. And either way, black's completely winning, so Neo resigned. So I was very pleased with this game. I seemed to deal with most of the problems quite well. There are a few tactical points I could maybe have played a little bit better. And earlier in the game I think Neo could have played a slightly different strategy. It was quite risky the way he played, although with these blocked positions, once they open up, everything looks a bit risky. It's a slow burner kind of game, a bit of manoeuvring in the opening around the blocked centre. The centre as we spoke of in the first part. But once the game opens up, after f4, just get to f4 for you here, f4, once this break comes in, and black plays his break, the game becomes a bit of a tactical slugfest. Both sides are trying to attack whichever weakness they can find and try to prevent the best moves and the best squares for the opponent's pieces. But I don't think black should have any real problems here. So I've got a few minutes left on this video, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and show you what preparation I'd done for this game. I was expecting the same opening, but perhaps a slightly different move order. And in this position I play e5. Of course, we've looked at this sort of idea before. You take back to the f pawn, there will be an open f file, and black can play for d5 very quickly, and there's a lot of central control. So white would continue as normal, here, here, and now we have the basic position, the central pawn structure and the check Benoni. White has a space advantage, black has his own pluses, and it's game on. And what I'd expected here was a very sharp line from Neo, which he'd played before, which involved g4. The plan is if black's king ever goes to the king side, white can simply play h4, h5, g5, and it's a very quick attack. So black tries to slow this down by playing h5. The pawn here, knight retreats, attacking the pawn twice with the queen and knight, and white simply plays h4, and now bishop g7. And white's only real plan in this position, again as we saw in the previous game, f4, pawn takes, this bishop becomes a bit of a monster. Only real plan here is to take on h5. If black's castle kingside, taking on h5, and when the pawn takes, the queen takes. And this could be very dangerous for black. And when I first put this into Fritz 13, I use a computer engine sometimes for preparation. Quite a lot of the time now, it's hard to do without. It gives you some good answers to tactical questions, and you can lead it along the paths that you need it to look at. So if you have a good positional idea or strategic idea, you can use the engines to help check for any tactical problems or any tactics that work in your favour. So initially the engine looks at this kind of position and gives +1, which is basically a pawn advantage it's saying to white. And the reason for that is simply the additional space. I looked at this at black and thought, well, I don't think it's a terrible problem. I think I can castle, allow this sacrifice here, and perhaps when white's king has to go to the queen side to allow all his other pieces into the attack, just to play a6, b5. And the more I looked at it with the engine score would come down, and basically it's an equal kind of position. So don't always rely on an initial engine assessment of a position. It gives a bonus for space advantage, and if there's no obvious tactical problems when you have a space advantage, it's going to give you a nice healthy bonus. The reality of it is, it's not that clear. The positions tend to be fairly equal when it's giving this bonus based just on space. As long as you can come up with a good active plan to counteract this, perhaps here. Another line would have been the knight to develop to this square instead, and to here, to give an added boost to b5. Let's just show that on the board while we're at it. So e4, perhaps I go g6 first in this move order. Bishop e2, g7, g4, h5, g5, knight h7, h4. We can see this is the same structure. Castles. And not worrying about this bishop takes h5 sacrifice particularly. White wants to develop a little bit, and now the knight comes this way. In fact, I think this was where my specific preparation was, on knight a6 to c7. To play a different move order, not to put the knight on d7. So let's say just takes, queen takes, knight back here, he castles, a6. The knight has to come into the game somewhere, this knight here. So the most logical looking for me was to play the knight to here, with the idea of going to h2 and up to g4 with some threats. And I think just immediate b5. And black has counterplay. He has to be careful. One of the plans I found with the help of the engine was bishop to here, just to defend some of these squares. The rook coming along here to open things up if white doesn't do it for black. And that was the basic preparation I did. It didn't work out in this game because my opponent chose a slightly different variation, but I'm sure at some point again I'll meet it. I've faced this bishop e2 and g4 idea, this thrust here, before, and I'm sure I'll meet it again, and the preparation I've done won't be wasted. It will come in useful at some point. When you do preparation like that, always save it somewhere in ChessBase or on your web server, wherever you play. Even a little notebook, handwritten, anything at all, just save it. Refresh your memory every couple of months on a few critical lines, and it will, I promise you, come in useful at some point in your chess life. Okay, that's us about done for this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back again during the week with one or two more videos. Any helpful suggestions, any constructive criticism is most welcome. Whether it's something technical, the board's too small, the sound isn't coming across well, whether it's something else like you want to see my pretty face along with it, I can do that. I've got a webcam, perfect face for radio, but each to their own with taste. Or if it's something specific regarding the analysis or of a position, just get in touch with me through my website www.streetfightingchess.com or on www.chess.com itself. Look me up under Street Fighter and send me a message there. Okay, hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for now. Bye bye.